welcome to AWS OnAir.
I told you I'm excited about this.
We want to help you see the things that are new and launching.
We are throwing you into the deep end.
Day 10. Let's do it.
Everybody, welcome to this week's very special episode of AWS On Air. My name's Nick, his name is Jeff, and today we are talking about Formula One and Ferrari. I'm pretty pumped. Jeff, I know you are as well.
Yeah, man, I got my DRS-enabled shirt on and excited to really dig into how AWS helps F1 and helps the viewer experience as well. Really exciting details, all this data and analytics. Really excited to learn more about that. So thanks for having me on, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been so excited for this episode. I've been rewatching every season of Drive to Survive to prepare. I've been taking it very seriously. But we've got some great footage from you guys today, both from the Miami Grand Prix a few weeks ago and from Imola this weekend. We got some special guests coming on. We've got some great people from AWS that handle this partnership to give us a little bit more flavor into what's happening behind the scenes of all these clips we're about to show. But before we get into all of this, we already got a W stream. Thanks, Swift Jaguar. But before we get into all this, Jeff, I think it's good to give the folks what is AWS On Air, broadly speaking, so they know what they're getting into here.
Yeah, we do this every week, a general show on Fridays to talk about what's new and upcoming, the new features, new services of AWS, talk to the service teams, show some live demos of new features and cool things, all in regards to all aspects of AWS. And you've been leading kind of the effort to show how we help with sports, and F1 has taken over this Friday's episode to show about all that huge partnership. But every Friday, and it's usually 3 p.m. on the Eastern time, noon Pacific on Fridays. But we have a bunch of other kind of specialty shows throughout the week as well.
Yeah, and this week we're at a special time slot specifically for our friends in the UK. We should be on the Twitch Hero there. So if you're joining from the UK, give us a shout out. If you're joining from anywhere, let us know where you're watching from. Let us know which F1 team or driver you support. Give them a shout out. Who do you think is going to win in Imola this weekend? And like Jeff said, it's going to be a pretty cool show. This is a great launching point for those of you interested in tech. We do everything from demos to exec interviews to this kind of show where we go live on site with customers to show you guys how our tech's being used in the real world, give you some insight into how the behind the scenes work into F1 and Ferrari. So I think we've babbled enough, Jeff. I think we should just get to the first segment and give the people what they want. What do you think?
Yeah, let's dive right into it.
All right, let's do it. Play it.
What's going on, everybody? This week, AWS On Air is on the road again here at the Miami Grand Prix with F1 and Ferrari. We're going to give you guys a sneak peek behind the curtain and how we're accelerating innovation, what is already the fastest sport in the world. And here to help me do that is the incomparable Ruth Buskam here. Ruth, can you give a quick introduction for our audience back home?
Hi, I'm Ruth Buskam. I think this is my 14th season in Formula One. So I started many moons ago as an engineer working in simulation at Scuderia Ferrari, living in Italy. I was there for 4 years and then moved over to be a strategy engineer and head of race strategy at Haas F1 team, and then 8 seasons with Alfa Romeo Sauber. And then last year I joined Formula One, where I now work with AWS and all the cool folks back in Formula One to help bring all the on-track action, the insights, the data, all the good geeky stuff to the folks at home, both in terms of the graphics and in terms of the commentary with F1 TV.
Perfect. So for those of you following at home, basically Ruth is who I want to be when I grow up. So Ruth, let's get into you're obviously the expert on F1. What's your role within this AWS partnership?
So I am the AWS technical advisor and motorsports brand ambassador, which is a really cool way of saying I get to hang out with all the awesome people in AWS, not just bringing those insights that AWS make to life, but also helping them develop them, making sure that Formula One know exactly what insight to use and when to bring all the action to the folks back at home on screen. And of course, getting to come to Miami and hang out with you.
I mean, obviously Miami's awesome. I'm going to take that as a personal compliment as well. Why don't we get rolling?
Yeah, I need to actually show you around the paddock.
All right, let's go.
Let's go.
All right, perfect. So Ruth, I can't tell you how excited I've been for this episode of AWS OnAir. As a lifelong F1 and Ferrari fan, I was ecstatic when I realized we had partnerships with them. So we have this partnership with Formula One, we have this partnership with Ferrari. We're diving into both today. What are some of the major projects that our audience is going to get to see today?
Wow, great question. So I think the biggest one that not just your audience, but everyone gets to see are the F1 insights powered by AWS, which actually generate the on-screen graphics you see that are bringing battles on track to life. We're bringing projected overtakes. They're bringing pit stop battles to life. There's so many different ways in which the data is really being brought to the fans through the power of AWS, leveraging all these really cool AI techniques.
Yeah, my family loves it. Getting into the F1 for the first time, I finally got my parents to watch it. They love F1 Insights powered by AWS.
It's so cool, right? And then we've got Track Pulse, which helps us in terms of the broadcast. You've got the pit stop analysis working on with the Scuderia Ferrari team. You know, we've even got real-time racetrack. But wait a minute, I don't want to just tell you these things. I want to show you them. And I think I actually have to set you up with a chat with the Dean Locke.
The Dean Locke, isn't he head of broadcast?
He's head of everything. He's pretty much head of everything.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I think he's a great person for you to talk to find out exactly how AWS is being used in the F1 broadcast.
That'd be fantastic. He's on the paddock here, right?
Yeah, I think we should be able to go find him.
All right, so before we do that, I have one more question for you. You're our AWS brand ambassador. Obviously, you're the expert in this sport. You've been around for forever, had so many different roles. We've been partners since 2018. We just went over a couple of the projects we've done recently, but what are some of the ones that we did in years past, maybe from 2018 to like 2024?
Well, my personal favorite, because I got to benefit from it as a race strategist, as a head of race strategy, was the 2022 F1 car design, which then influenced the new set of regulations that came in 2022. And that set of regulations actually meant that the cars were able to follow closer, and we got 30% more overtaking.
Wow.
Which, for me, sat on the pit wall as head of race strategy, and for all of the Formula One drivers out there actually going racing, was pretty awesome. So I think the helping hand that AWS gave there, I'd say that's my personal favorite.
I mean, that's pretty cool. And that's something I noticed as a fan, was there did seem to be noticeably more overtakes. I didn't realize, even as an AWS employee, that came from our car redesign. So that's pretty dang
impressive.
Nifty.
And did you know, in the 2024 Canadian Grand Prix, where AWS was the title sponsor, we actually also had the world's first Formula One trophy designed by AI.
Wow, I did
the
not.
prompts were based not only on local elements of Montreal, but also based on the plume that comes out the back of a Formula One car, which was part of the car design regulations that enabled overtaking, and the race was won by an overtake. Is brilliant.
That worked out perfectly. And that makes sense for the design too. So it's the kind of the aerodynamic wind coming off the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay, that trophy design was really cool. Now I feel like it's even cooler.
It's very cool, and it's actually gorgeous as well. I'd say it's one of my favorites.
Well, I cannot wait to dive into all of this more with you, with Dean, talking about these F1 insights powered by AWS, talking about Track Pulse. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I think I saw him this way, so I'm going to go introduce you.
All right, let's go get him.
All right, guys, welcome back. You'll notice we've got two new people here, one of whom is muted right now, so she should probably come off of mute. We've got Mike and Keely. They are the F1 and Ferrari experts here at AWS. They're joining us live from where, Mike?
Maranello, Italy, Ferrari headquarters.
Yeah, just rubbing that in. Keely's being very subtle with her imagery there to let us know where she's being. But guys, why don't you quick give us an introduction as to who you are and what you do for AWS?
Sure. So, hey everyone, Mike Agata. I'm the head of motorsports partnerships for AWS. And Nick, Jeff, thanks so much for having me. Big fans. long-time listeners, long-time listener, first-time video caller. So really appreciate you having me in.
You stole my line. I'm Keely ONeal. I'm a senior sports marketing manager here at AWS. And so I support the F1 and the Ferrari partnerships as a marketer. And if you hear engine noises, that's what that is, because I'm sitting in a right next to a garage. So fun fact.
Man, just continually rubbing it in even more. I like it. Okay. Well, guys, they're joining us from the Ferrari headquarters in Maranello. Where is everybody else watching from? It looks like we've got some people from Texas.
I saw California earlier.
California, San Juan, Puerto Rico, LA, Bangladesh. Got a worldwide audience here, which means I think we're going to have fans of every different team. So let us know who you're a fan of. Let us know where you're watching from. And Keely, Stace is very jealous. I think we all are, of you just having a full-size car on your office.
Yeah, that won't fit in my hand luggage on the way home, I don't think. So I can't take it home, unfortunately.
All right, and we got somebody coming from Napoli, where love is king, as well. So that's pretty cool. So guys, let's dive into these partnerships, though.
Yeah, Keely and Mike, I'm a huge F1 fan and really excited to work with AWS. And, I was watching FP1 and FP2 this morning and seeing a bunch of AWS signage around the track. So I'm really excited to hear from you guys all about the partnership, kind of how it started, and just get some more information about it.
Yeah, sounds good. So AWS has been involved in sports partnerships for a while, and we typically partner with top teams and leagues globally. As you heard from Ruth earlier, we signed our partnership with Formula One in 2018, and we signed our partnership with Ferrari in 2021. The reason we did that was all about kind of understanding the kind of draw that Formula One brings, and Formula One is the most data-driven sport. So there's 300 sensors on the car. Over 1.1 million data points are taken off that car per second. So obviously times that by 20 with each one of the teams. So from an AWS perspective, our messaging is simple. We take that data, we visualize it, we process it using machine learning, and our intent is to make a complex sport simple to understand.
Gotcha. It's so cool. And what stood out to me, and what I don't know why I didn't process at first, is more than really any other sport, F1 is based on data and engineering. I felt like this was such a cool partnership, and I love seeing it come to life. Specifically, as a little bit of a physics nerd, I loved seeing the car design stuff, the car design project that Ruth mentioned in that video earlier. So I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. What exactly happened there? What did we do? How did we do it? And how did we somehow get involved in the making of F1 car designs?
Yeah, that was a super cool project. So in the 2022 to 2026 car design at the time sat with Formula One, and they worked with us on a problem statement, which was, how do we improve wheel-to-wheel racing? How do we make the sport more exciting? And the intent, the idea behind that was, how do we structure and kind of design the car in a way where we were able to kind of solve that? So we used computational fluid dynamics, which is essentially kind of the computer graphic generation of liquid and gases, kind of if you think about the aerodynamic wake over the car, ran millions of simulations in parallel using high performance computing. And what we discovered very quickly was that the existing car design was pushing the aerodynamic wake down, which meant that if a car was approaching an overtake, there was a kind of a pocket of what we call dirty air. So that kind of reduced the downforce on the car behind, which made it a lot harder for it to overtake. So using AWS and using computational fluid dynamics and high performance computing on AWS rather than on premise allowed them to run multiple thousands of these simulations in parallel to kind of work out how to push the air up and away from the car behind, which means that the car approaching from behind has more downforce, which therefore means that the tires have more grip, which then allowed for an overtake. We then piloted that design. We positioned it to Formula One in 2022, and they implemented it. And as you can see from the 2022 to 2026, this season and hopefully the end of this season, there's been a lot more overtakes. And in particular, there's been 30% more overtakes as a result of this design.
Yeah, and I think we can hear some overtakes in the background there. I loved this project. I loved seeing it. There's a full deep dive on it we did with Neil Ashton last year. Hopefully our producers can throw something in the comments there. If you guys want the full breakdown of how we brought that car to life, check it out. We called it the next gen car at the time, but I guess it'd be current gen car now. And we're working on the next gen, right?
Yeah, well, the next gen is now the regulations sit with the FIA. But we've got a lot of interesting projects for Formula One coming, so please keep an eye out in the next sort of 3 to 4 years.
So excited. Yeah. Super cool to keep up with that stuff.
Yeah, Nick, one of the other thing you talked about with Ruth was the trophy, and it's almost like you used someone used CFD to help design that trophy, but it sounds like that was more AI related. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about that trophy design?
Oh yeah, that was a really cool project. So last year in Canada, the AWS Grand Prix de Canada, which was our title race, which we were a title sponsor for. So that's part of our partnership. Every year we get access to be a title sponsor. So this year is in Imola this weekend. Last year was in Canada. And we were fortunate enough to be able to design the trophy. And, you know, being a tech company, we didn't want to kind of use basic methods. So we decided to use generative AI to do that. Thinking about the prompts that we use, we kind of fed it kind of influences from that aerodynamic wake that I just talked about. We provided kind of prompts from, a nod to Canada and the river that flows through Montreal through the racetrack. And using Bedrock and Amazon Titan image generator, we were able to generate the design for the first ever generative AI design trophy. We used kind of traditional silversmith methods to kind of actually develop the trophy. And if you haven't seen it, please check it out. It is a beautiful piece of work.
That's so
yeah, actually, we still have 2 trophy. We made 2 replicas. So one is in the UK at an Amazon office, and then one is in the US at the Seattle headquarters. So you can actually still take a look at it if you ever visit an office. It's pretty cool to have those nearby.
Nice. Is it on the wall? Is that what's on the wall in your office in Seattle? instead of
no, I have a different car. I have a different car, actually. One of the drivers just sits in a corner of my office. That's
I see. Okay. Oh man. Well, we accidentally, it looks like Jeff answered a question from Jasmine over here to tell us more about the trophy. There you go, Jasmine. And guys, in the chat, you know, we are a live show, I promise. When we're looking over here, we're usually looking at y'all's comments. So drop them in. If you have questions for Mike or Keely as we go, they are the experts on all things F1 and Ferrari. So you guys have them for the next hour. Try to pick their brains a bit. Try to stump them. I dare you, because they're pretty good at all this stuff. But super cool to see it. So the trophy is basically the turbulence coming off the back of that car design.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of prompts that we use. There's actually a deep dive blog. So if you just search for AWS Generative AI Trophy, you can see the kind of detailed technical write up behind that. But yeah, we fed it prompts around kind of the aerodynamic wake. We've Canada influence, the maple leaf as well. And that's what it resulted in. You know, it kind of came out with that beautiful design. I think there was a question about the services. I think I touched on them a little bit there. So Bedrock, as well as kind of Amazon Titan image generator, were the kind of key services from an AWS perspective that we used.
Gotcha. All right.
That's great. So all this talk about design, CFD, we kind of started, one of the first things I mentioned was all the data analytics. And in fact, this week, the F1 Tech Talk show was all about data analytics and how the production team uses all of this data and how AWS helps that out. Nick, it sounds like you got to talk to Dean Locke, who is the head of F1 production. Let's go back to Miami and see that segment.
Yeah, let's roll it.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm now joined by Dean Locke of F1. Dean, before we get into the questions we have for you, can you quick give an introduction as to who you are and what you do for F1?
Okay, I'm Director of Broadcast Media and Digital. So any content or any product delivery, making those products, I run the overarching team that does all of that. So if you see Formula One, then it would have gone through those departments.
Perfect. So essentially a dream job for most people.
Yeah,
we're in Miami for the Grand Prix. We're actually in the paddock right now. You're getting ready to broadcast this race. What goes into broadcasting a live F1 race?
we could be here a while. It's a really complicated sport to cover.
Yeah.
So if you think about stadium sport, 2 teams, 1 ball, generally going one way. We have simultaneous action going around a really large field, all doing their own stories as well. They all have their own races to cover. So I guess it's like golf, but a lot quicker.
Yeah, fastest sport in the world.
Yeah, loads of data, really complex stories to tell. So we've been doing it a while. We break it down into various areas. So here in Miami, we have our event technical center on site, which is really an acquisition. So it's getting all those data points, pictures, audio off the cars. And then we send all that to our media and technology center. So one of the biggest regular remote operations in the world. And then that's where all the curation happens. So whether that is social, digital content, but fundamentally all really coming from our world feed product and covering the race. What's really exciting is, we have 24 races plus testing now. So there's a lot of events that we're covering. And every race, we will look back and go, we could have done that better. What about bringing this in? What about being able to tell that story better? So it's always evolving.
Yeah, very exciting, very fast-paced, obviously. I can't imagine how you're able to process all of that in the moment and give us such an amazing feed and all the stories that go along with those.
We try not to miss anything, but there's a lot going on. And, using some of the AWS technology as well, is actually to be able to understand what stories we should be telling.
Yeah, let's get into that AWS partnership. So we've obviously been partnered with Formula One for a number of years. What's your experience been working with AWS?
The early stages, I think we had to understand what we were good at and also what AWS were really good at and how we could work together, like all relationships really. And I think that took a little while to understand that we shouldn't ask AWS to do something actually that we're quite good internally and vice versa. But we certainly went with AWS with problems, which is a really good thing to do with your partner. Okay, look, we would love to do this. We would really love to do that. This is something we've never been able to do before. How can you help us? And then using that expertise on both sides. So, sometimes it was us coming up with the concept. Sometimes it was the other way around. And just how can we do that? How can we not only sort of engage the fan, help the fan understand a really complex sport, but also other areas, so how can we distribute better? How can we get the signals really effectively to all the fans? How can we use that technical underbelly to make all our products a great deal better?
So Ruth and I were just talking about some of the bigger, more recent big ticket items that AWS and F1 have worked on together, being Track Pulse, F1 Insights, such as time lost, I know we recently announced. Let's start with the former. What exactly is Track Pulse?
Okay, so Track Pulse, it's very difficult to find a hybrid person to work in Formula One.
Yeah.
Because you have to be a great storyteller, a great content maker, but also have the sort of knowledge that Ruth has of Formula One strategy and the dark arts of Formula One. And it's a really complex sport that we're also trying to simplify as best we possibly can. So finding a producer that can do all of that is fairly unicorn stuff. So actually what we thought is, can we make a tool that can make these producers just perform better and therefore give the fan richer insights and a better snapshot of Formula One? So can we have that producer who knows about storytelling and making things look great, but giving them those tips and a tool that says, hey, this is happening, we should really be focusing on that. Yeah. So how can we make these producers really better? That's where it started.
Okay.
And it is an incredible tool. We then, once we got into it and we're still developing it now, really. But once we got into it a little bit further, we realized it's not just producers at Formula One who are making the world feed and other contents and edits. Could we hand it over to our broadcast partners as well? Could they help with their commentary teams and their own studio shows? Can we enrich their shows by having this as well? So then we sort of partially changed the development cycle to incorporate them. And strangely, I don't think that's the end of it. We recognise the power of it. In that, could it be a fan-facing product?
Yeah.
I've looked at it on a laptop, and I was thinking I would watch that as a second screen companion. It's pretty dynamic the way it works, and we've looked at other elements. So actually, it's starting to really grow. Like, all really good sort of success stories, really. In that we don't know the end of it yet. It could all the way go through to a consumer-facing product. So exciting.
It's super exciting. I've been able to see some of the behind the scenes stuff on it, see how it works. Like, it is very interesting. I would totally watch it with the race. You mentioned we just opened it up to other broadcasters in April. Let's talk about that a little bit. What has it meant for our broadcasters? How have they been receiving it?
It's really good to engage with broadcast partners and say, hey, look, have a go with this. What do you think? Because it's impossible. We have so many 60 odd in 160 territories, and they're all very subtly different. So give it to a smaller broadcaster, bigger broadcaster, going, how would you use this?
Yeah.
Would it be your commentators? Would it be your producers? And interestingly, there's some elements back saying, well, we would use it as a review tool, whereas rather than a live tool, which we were focusing on. So we would go back and say, well, hold on, how did he make those jumps on lap 14? And they could go, so actually we put a timeline into it that you can sort of drag through and look at the stuff. There were some elements around team radio. Could we incorporate that? So the feedback was how they were going to use it, which was, I've been doing this a long time, and it's very difficult to predict how people will use tools. So actually the best thing you do is just give it to them, let them have a play, and get the feedback from them.
I'm sure the AWS engineers back at the studio we're going to be talking to in a second, just all related hardcore to that. It's hard to tell how people are going to use things, and it's cool to see how we're able to adapt as those use cases come up.
And what I think the success story was that in normal circumstances, we probably wouldn't attempt it, but because we did that, let's try this. But most of the success stories I've been involved in, we can't see the end of it. So that continual development, like I said, with broadcast partners, I think if it was a fan-facing product, you'd make it slightly different as well. Being able to tailor that on that sort of ground level is really, really important, and exciting.
Yeah, really been fun to see how it's been evolving. And let's talk about the F1 Insights specifically. Well, we'll get to the specifics in a second. Let me ask you this open-ended. What are the F1 Insights, just to give fans an overview, and what have been some of your favorites personally that you've been able to see come out of this partnership?
There's quite a few of them now, so I'm glad you didn't ask me to name them all. When we started a relationship, we started it with, hey, look, here's some issues, here's some problems we would love to explore, with the creativity and the technical powerhouse, of AWS. And then we went for a cycle where we refined that a little to go, well, actually, which ones can you help, rather than actually, they don't make sense or they're not the core business, really. So F1 Insights are a bunch of graphics to explain a really complicated sport slightly simply. There's lots going on in a Formula One race that maybe the fans just aren't connecting. The mid-order battles, there's some fantastic mid-order battles, and someone like Ruth could really explain that well because she's been part of that. But a top team may only change their strategy once, whereas a mid-order team may change it 4, 5 times.
Trying to find some.
Because they're right in the middle of the field, there's traffic everywhere. So it's a lot more dynamic, and actually I couldn't work out how we could potentially tell that story. So, okay, well, let's get some really complex graphics. I once heard Nico Rosberg trying to explain the undercut. He's a F1 world champion, he couldn't really explain it. He's incredibly clever. He was going to do an engineering degree at one point. So, and he couldn't really explain it. So I said, all right, how can we, so we set some really high bar challenges. Can we explain an undercut threat? Can we make it dynamic? So taking all the rich amount of data that Formula One has, which is huge.
So much,
huge. How can we take all that data and actually transform that into a graphic that a casual fan, an engaged fan can watch and use? So, and how can we demystify some elements of the sport? Because, we've seen this huge fan base that has changed. Younger fans,
it's been evolving,
fans.
It's been growing.
Yeah. So how can we? So we don't want people tuning in and going, but Formula One's really complicated. It is, but how can we sort of make that slightly simpler? So the F1 Insights is, a huge bunch of graphics that we don't use them all in one race. You might get a wet race which knock a whole load out, but actually open up to other races. You get street circuits that are really good for some of those. So it's a toolbox of graphics that we can explain of what's going on in a race, and not rely only on commentators in those regions to explain it. You asked, for some favorites. I think one of the very first ones, the Battle Forecast, I still really like, and it was one of the early ones. And it's pretty simple. It's, hey, don't go anywhere, because we do get lulls in races sometimes. Don't go anywhere because this is about to happen. So it's fairly textbook storytelling in content. But how can we bring that in there? So don't go away, because in 4 laps time, everything's going to go off because he's catching them. So that's still my favorite, and we tweaked it with overtaking difficulty. I think we removed elements of it, but it's still a good graphic, and I still call for it.
As a fan, I appreciate that for that exact reason. You're trying to time out. Can I go get a snack real quick? It's, I don't want to miss this. It's about to come up. I love that one.
Yeah, I really do like that one. We just launched a new one at Austin, I believe, last year, which is time loss. Which, and actually Ruth, I remember Ruth coming to see me, running across the paddock to see me and go, you don't know how powerful that graphic is. And that's from a team strategist who was on a pit wall, not that long ago. And she said there was something in that time loss graphic that even their own team didn't spot straight away.
Really?
Yeah, which is really interesting. So, whether it's just a little kick out of a wheel, or we said a brush of a wall, we had Lando Norris in Singapore was a really good one. But it's just, what we said about Max Verstappen's qualifying laps, what we had, it's hundredths of a second between 1, 2, and 3 sometimes. How can you really differentiate or what those 3 drivers did differently?
Exactly. We're talking about minuscule things that make all the difference in the world.
It's very little space. So actually, we can sort of say, look, just that very slight oversteer cost 0.3, 0.2, or something like that. Just demystifies the sport a little bit more. So
I've really, again, as a fan, the F1 insights have been amazing, because even just getting my parents into the sport, like you said, there seems to be this high bar of it's so complicated, but they're able to explain the story of the race in such a easy to understand way.
I think when people get into the sport that haven't been in it or not been a fan for a while, they come back into the sport and they realize there's so much more into it. It's not just 2 hours necessarily on a Sunday. There's stories all through the week, but also the practice sessions, telling stories around that. Qualifying's I still really enjoy qualifying. Qualifying's a great show. And there's some great stories at the moment because there's not much in it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. You've actually set up, I'm hoping I can run into Ruth again. We just finished talking to her. Now I'm kind of curious to get her perspective on time loss.
It'd be a great deal more technical than me.
I definitely want to ask about this story of her running across the paddocks when that was debuted. But thank you so much, Dean, for taking the time to talk with us today. We're going to send it back to the desk to dive into some of the tech that Dean just told us about.
Well, first and foremost, I need to apologize to our audience for leaving them on such a burning cliffhanger. Will I run into Ruth again? I guess you'll just have to stay tuned for another couple minutes to find out. But before we dive into that segment, I just want to give a quick shout out to our comment section is popping off, guys. Like when we're looking over here, we are talking about it. Yeah, we got some people from Philippines talking about Ferrari. Lots of people talking about your background here, Keely. Let's go through some more. We got some South Africa fans, India fans. We've got people that are fans of Sergio Perez right at the bottom there. We've got people talking about Ghana. We've got worldwide audience. We've got people from all over different fandoms here. Guys, let us know your questions. Let us know who you're cheering for, who's going to win this weekend, what kind of merch you want, I guess, from F1 too. And with this level of fandom, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out the sweepstakes that these 2 wonderful people underneath me on screen came up with. You might have noticed a QR code in that last segment that popped up saying you can design your own racetrack. Now, I don't want to give spoilers for approximately 35 more minutes into this program, but we'll be diving into that technology a little bit later. If you want to check it out now, I encourage you to. You can go design your own racetrack, get involved in a little sweepstakes there. We'll give you some more details later, but I definitely encourage you guys, if you see the QR code pop up a couple more times on screen here, check it out, pull your phone out, click on it. We'll make sure we keep giving you guys chances to do it. We got some pretty cool prizes lined up in that sweepstakes, and then you get to design your own track. So go ahead and give it a link. down there. Yeah. So, all right, let's get back to the main segment here, though, guys. Jeff,
Yeah, so I want to bring up something. A key word that has been mentioned right before that segment and during the segment is overtakes, and how exciting more overtakes make things more exciting. And we've kind of hit on the fact that AWS helped with the design of the current car design, but all F1 fans are kind of nervous, maybe, or excited, nervous about the 2026 design, what that's going to bring to the race. And we had a question from a viewer, Paramount. I don't know, Nick, if you can bring that up, wondering, maybe this is less of a AWS technical question, but saying how 30% more overtakes is exciting. Mike or Keely, can you add any insight on what does 2026 look like for overtakes? Do you think there's going to be more?
Yeah, I mean, look, this season in particular is a really interesting one. It's what we're calling the rise of the rookies. So there's 5 rookies in season, and I think Dean mentioned it in his talk earlier. There's obviously the top battle, fight for first and second place, but with the introduction of these new rookies, there's a really interesting mid-table battle. So I think as we kind of develop into kind of the 2026 season, we'll see these rookies kind of come into their own, and we're super excited to see the way that they develop on track and how that kind of falls into 2026 and beyond.
Keely, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you about 2026, but I think we did have dinner with Ruth last night. And she was talking about too, a good reminder that this is the last year of the car design from 2022 to 2026, which means all of the teams have taken all of those learnings, all of the data that they've had, they're watching each other and they're learning from each other, and they built some really strong cars this year. So what you're seeing is really strong speed. You're seeing them learn from each other. It's really competitive. And so you're really seeing what happens the last year of the car. And so next year it's all going to be brand new, and they're all going to be in the same spot where they don't really know what to do quite yet. So yeah, I think next year is going to be exciting because we don't know, but this year you're going to see some really top speeds and great competition.
And what's really interesting is that some of the teams have already started to work on their 2026 car and put funding towards that, and kind of invested in it. So it's really exciting to see what's possible.
Yeah, and speaking of rookies, it looks like the audience has spoken. We got a question here asking when I'm going to be able to get behind the wheel with the GoPro. So I feel like if everybody's going to be learning the new car, might as well. I appreciate whoever that commenter was. We're going to try to make that happen.
Well, if you're able to speak to Dean, then you're able to speak to a car, get into a car, because that man is incredibly difficult to get hold of. So I think anything's possible.
Let's get back to Dean, though.
Yeah, let's get back to Dean and kind of talking about rookie drivers. There's a lot of rookie kind of F1 fans. And like you guys were talking about, sometimes it's hard to understand what's going on, understand what DRS is, things of that nature. But things like Track Pulse help. So Mike and Keely, can we talk about how Track Pulse came about? And I'd love to know how it works.
Yeah, so Track Pulse, Dean came to us with a problem or a challenge, which was, in the production team, there's multiple camera feeds, multiple kind of different sources of data. And his primary goal and objective is to kind of improve the fan experience and kind of keep them engaged during that broadcast of the race. So in 2022, during the Belgium Grand Prix, our AWS team shadowed Dean and his team in the production facility in London, and learned that there was a huge opportunity to start to visualize data that's coming off the car to help Dean and his team with that kind of production element. So as Dean quite rightly said, there's a lot of cameras on following various different kind of stories that kind of unfold throughout the race. What Track Pulse does is it visualizes that data in a kind of a graphical format and provides prediction using machine learning to help Dean point his camera to a potential upcoming story. So it allows Dean to kind of create kind of a more engaging storyline for the fans to kind of watch along and be engaged. And like we talked about earlier, it's not just the top two that top 2 drivers that kind of everyone's focusing on. There's a lot of mid-table and even further down the table battles that are super interesting and super engaging.
Yeah, and kind of building on that, like Dean said, F1 Insight's been around for a while. They've obviously become a massive part of the sport and getting people to understand at a faster pace. It sounds like time loss is one of the more recent ones we did, and it's been received really well. How did that come about? How does it work?
Yeah, so time loss is a really interesting one. Time loss is, we'll see, an AWS, F1 Insight powered by AWS, graphic that we launched in Austin, as Dean's quite rightly said. And it provides that kind of timestamp of if there was a kind of a lockup or like there was a downshift, for example, what the impact to the qualifying or the kind of a race performance looks like. And, you know, using that kind of telemetry data that comes off the car, using kind of the kind of process that we've developed and the machine learning models that we've worked on with Formula One, we're able to kind of graphically show the impact of those kind of, I guess, errors to show you in real time, because it's quite difficult to kind of really visually see if, you know, if somebody's like a microsecond behind where they need to be in order to qualify. And what's super interesting is that, let's say, you know, you're 2 seconds late for an appointment. You don't really kind of bat an eyelid. If you're 2 seconds late in qualifying, that's the difference between first and last. Yeah. So we're talking about kind of hundredths or tenths of or hundredths of a second here, which, you know, as you know, in Formula One, every percent
makes a whole difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, Ruth, it was mentioned, Dean said Ruth got really excited about this metric. So let's circle back to that wonderful cliffhanger and see if I coincidentally ran into Ruth again in Miami. I think you guys might also see a fun little cameo by somebody else on this screen during this segment. So let's roll it, Debbie.
So you have to tell me, how was the conversation with the Dean Locke?
The Dean Locke was as legendary as advertised. We talked about track pulse. We learned about F1 Insights powered by AWS. We learned about how those are kind of used in the broadcasting booth to give fans the best experience possible at home. He also mentioned a fun story about when Time Lost was debuted. You got really excited and might have noticed something that other drivers didn't or something. Like, what happened there?
Well, we debuted the Time Lost graphic in Austin, and we actually discovered something before any of the competitive teams saw. And I'm very competitive as an engineer, and so I was a team AWS. We found it first. It was so cool, and it's insights like this, it just wasn't possible to do, and it's just not possible to do in the pace and the speed that we're able to do it. I was very happy that we got to show that one off on broadcast.
Absolutely.
Before even the teams found out.
That is pretty impressive. Pretty incredible story. Definitely a feather in your cap there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to have a word with him about him telling about, like, you know, me running around geeking out. But, you know, other than that, it was a great insight, and we've used it in so many cool ways since. But yeah, you'll have to probably have another conversation to find that.
All right, I'm definitely gonna have to talk to Dean a little bit more then. What is Time Lost your favorite F1 Insight, or do you have a different one?
Oh, I think they change. Right now, I'm loving Time Lost. I think because it gives us this extra layer and this extra speed that we've never had before in terms of really understanding exactly what time a driver is losing and why. Is it a front lockup in turn 14? Is it that they've maybe made a slight error in terms of the braking, the acceleration? So as an engineer, I think this is currently my favorite, but if you ask me in 3 races time, it will have changed.
All right, we're going to follow up then in 3 races time. I think that's what we have to do. Okay. And my last question here is, I know you've got a ton to prep for with the broadcast tomorrow, with the race tomorrow. How, in general, has having access to all these different stories changed how you broadcast day of, or how you approach telling those stories to fans?
It's honestly, it's so cool. People say, what's it like? You know, you're no longer in a pit wall doing strategy. And I'm like, I'm doing way more strategy. And instead of just having a small strategy department, I feel like I have the whole power of AWS at my fingertips. And it really enables you to not only tell the stories to the fans, but for me as an engineer to grow. I'm sure if I went back now now, I would beat myself, having learned all this extra insights. And that's why it's, learning exactly what you can do. And we're just getting started. Like, we didn't have time loss before the Austin Grand Prix. Now it's my favorite. So what's going to be my favorite in 3 months now? I can't wait to find out. I'm sure I'll geek around it. I'm sure Dean will tell you. And then, we can revisit this next time.
It's mind-blowing to me that it's actually, you feel that way, that you almost know more now. And that makes me feel a lot more confident as a fan, too. Love those F1 insights. Can't wait to see you on the broadcast for the Miami Grand Prix. Going to let you get ready for that. Thank you so much for taking the time to kind of give me a tour of this paddock area and set me up with the Dean Locke. I'm going to go try to see if I can maybe see some of the cars, check out some of the garages. But again, thank you so much, Ruth. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Have fun. Thank you for having me.
Well, everybody, I thought while we're here at the Miami Grand Prix and I got this fancy VIP guest pass, I might as well try to see if I can get us into the Ferrari garage to see some of the cars.
Nick. What's going on?
Oh, hey, Keely.
Hi. Fancy seeing you here.
Yeah, great timing. I was trying to maybe see some of the Ferrari cars. Do you think that?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Not even a little bit?
No, they have actually a no nick policy.
A no?
For the garage.
Really?
Specifically, yeah. So
they implemented that tier too, huh?
Yeah.
That's becoming a lot more of an issue for us.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
What do you have going on here?
Yeah, well, we're actually doing a live stream right now, so this is perfect time, and I'm putting you on the spot. Guys, this is Keely. She is pretty important to the AWS Ferrari partnership. Keely, why don't you tell the audience who you are, what you do for AWS?
Yeah, so I'm Keely. I am a sports marketing manager at AWS. So that means I get to tell really cool stories that we're doing with our sports partnerships, and for me, that means with Ferrari. So it's pretty exciting.
Pretty awesome. Okay, so can you tell us a bit, what are the projects we work on with Ferrari then? Like, when did the partnership start? What do we do with them?
Yeah, so we have been a Scuderia Ferrari HP team partner with Ferrari since 2021.
Okay.
And some projects that we worked on, we actually worked on a Gen AI project on the sports car side.
Okay.
And then we also have 2 projects that are really exciting, specific to Formula One, which is pit stop analysis and power unit manufacturing. We've been adding machine learning to that workflow with them.
Okay.
Consolidating all of their data in one place so they can act really quickly using machine learning to optimize both of those processes.
Wow, okay. So pit stop analysis, power unit assembly.
Yep.
Hopefully our people back at the desk can tell us a little bit more about the technology there. And you're sure? I mean, you're pretty important here. It sounds like you can't lift the anti-nick rule just for like 90 seconds, maybe?
So not here.
No.
But what I can do, I probably can hook you up in Imola and see if I can get you some access, maybe even to a driver.
Wow.
Get you some time with them. So
I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna back out before you change your mind. So I will see you in Imola.
All right, sounds good.
All right, guys. We couldn't get into the Miami Grand Prix stuff, but I think we got a better deal with some of this content from Imola. So I guess we'll see you live from Imola next. But for now, back to the desk.
First off, this anti-nick rule, not a fan of that one.
Yeah, let's
Keely.
explain that a little bit.
I've not heard of the anti-nick rule before. Was that new?
I
Yes.
think it might be this year. Well, Mike, if you've never heard of it, maybe I should talk to you next time I'm out there, and you can hook me up. But real quick, before we dive into the Ferrari stuff with our people at the desk, like I promised, first and foremost, guys, those of you watching, everybody hates surveys, but we're going to have a survey. So if you guys take our brief 30-second survey, and I mean 30 seconds because I've timed it myself, just let us know, do you want other topics like this on the show? What other leagues, pro sports leagues, do you want us talking about next? What other customers in general do you want us talking to next? Explain kind of the how it's made of how all the technology behind your favorite sports, use cases, whatever it might be, work. Let us know that feedback. If you have a builder ID, you'll get $20 in AWS credits. Maybe try out some of this stuff. Design your own trophy. Use Titan Image Generator and play around, see what you can create yourself. And again, we'll circle back in a bit to talk about how you can make your own racetrack. But for now, let's focus on this Ferrari stuff and that power unit assembly, pit stop analysis. Jeff, I know you're super passionate about this, so I'll let you take over.
Yes, I just mentioned every race you see AWS signage everywhere. And I think maybe some people don't realize that we also partner with Ferrari. And Keely, you did a great job kind of kicking that off in that last segment. But Give us some more information. Why Ferrari? Why is AWS and Ferrari a good partnership? And tell us all about it.
Yeah, I feel like it's Inception because I'm now in a Ferrari office, and first I was guarding a Ferrari garage, so this is pretty great. So yeah, AWS has been a partner with Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari HP since 2021, and we are the official cloud machine learning and artificial intelligence provider of the Scuderia Ferrari HP. So that's the official language, but we are an ideal partnership truly because we both really value innovation, and I think the partnership really set itself up well in 2021 because we wanted together to focus on continuing to push that pace of innovation. And that's not a racing pun, but we'll use it. But really across the entire Ferrari business. So yeah, 2021 it started, and since then we've done quite a lot of exciting projects together.
Awesome. What we've done lots of projects. What were the two? I know we're setting it up here. What were the two most recent, super exciting ones that we've done?
Yeah, so actually the most recent, so pit stop analysis, we just published an article about that during this live stream on the machine learning blog on AWS. So,
breaking news.
Yeah, we're breaking news all over the place. So pit stop analysis specifically, both of them use machine learning, but this one's really interesting because it uses object recognition from the actual traffic light that you see on the pit stop, and pinpoints the specific time frame there and actually synchronizes that data to the tools, the screw guns that are removing the tires during the pit stops. And it synchronizes those so they can find where, like, real time, when there was an error or where they specifically need to increase the speed, similar to how they would do with the cars on track with those sensors. So they're able to bring that data together with AWS and use machine learning to analyze all of that, the videos that come off of it. And so it's really interesting. It's been really helpful for them so far this year.
Awesome. And, let's dive into those a little bit more. We can start with power unit assembly here. And guys, again, just a reminder to those watching in the chat, ask us questions. Hopefully we can answer as many as possible. Even just put in some comments. We have a shout out from Charlene here on Facebook saying, as someone new to F1, the F1 insights are so informative and help them understand the sport a little bit more. We love to hear that. Take the survey. Let us know feedback on future topics. It looks like Salazar Gaming 615 saying soccer. Believe we have a partnership with Bundesliga. So, let us know. We can do a future episode on them. But for now, let's drive it back to Ferrari. Let's hear it straight from the horse's mouth on what is the power unit assembly process. I liked that pun. Why don't we hit it? Take it away, Debbie.
Power unit management is quite complex because from one side, from the design and manufacturing phase and so on, we need to improve the performance, but from the other side, we need to enhance the reliability of the power unit. As you may know, the FAA imposes us a limit in usage of the power unit per driver. So one of the most challenging aspects on this work is to try to balance performance and reliability. AWS is helping us in centralizing and automating the data. Previously, we had to manually review data from the assembly process that are spread across different systems. So for the engineers, it was quite difficult to spot anomalies or to detect some trends. We built a centralized access point for the data, fully serverless and event-driven architecture through AWS infrastructure. The core components of our solution are Amazon S3, where we built a data lake with power units data coming from all on-premise data sources. Amazon SageMaker Studio, where we built and developed a custom model for the anomaly detection. Also AWS Glue for ETL purposes and also for the calculation of functional drifts over time for engine components.
Ferrari's manufacturing processes, drifts refers to gradual, unintended changes in critical measurements or performance parameter over time, like, for example, the declining of the power or fuel efficiency. Essentially, it indicates when a power unit is start to operate outside its normal working parameters. With the help of AWS, our engineers now can access the data in a centralized point through AWS QuickSight.
Now we can have some dedicated dashboards that are merging all this data. This brings us to a different kind of analysis, more accurate, more faster. It means that we can act during the assembly process in order to avoid any kind of deviation from the standard. So what we are thinking now is to expand the way we do this analysis. We're going to expand this in other areas of the Scuderia Ferrari HP. Having AWS services that help us in managing automatically this kind of maintenance is really an help.
And we're back. So I'm a bit of a noob, so this is where my noobness is going to show. What exactly is a power unit? I've never fully known.
I'll take this. Oh, I've got a visitor for a moment. So power units are highly complex, but basically, Jeff and I were talking about this before, so I'll let him step in a little bit, but it's the heartbeat of the car. It's not just the engine. There's a lot more components to it. So I'm going to kick it to my friend Jeff here to elaborate on that just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, since they started to make the electrical power units as well, so the engine is now a hybrid thing. So, you know, there's a difference. Like an internal combustion is an engine, but an electric motor is a motor. Engines and motors are different. So now in an F1 car, they have both. They have both an internal combustion engine and electric motors. So they're considering all of that the power unit, because it's kind of inaccurate to call that an engine to include the motors. But it also includes the turbocharger and then all the electronics that handle all the charging and the batteries as well. So all that put together, that's the power unit.
Yeah, fun fact as well. So this the current engine in the Formula One cars are V6s, 1.6 liters, which doesn't sound a lot. I think my first car had about the same, but the first car by no means had the same horsepower. You know, the amount of horsepower that these cars are pushing around is outrageous. And fun fact for you: so when you see the kind of red blinking light on the F1 cars, that's when they're harvesting battery power. To be used. They can use at any point during the race to kind of give them that extra horsepower, in particular for overtakes.
That's interesting. I want to shout out Full Throttle 76 here because they are an encyclopedia of knowledge. Great answer there too. So we have that to reference in addition to what Jeff was talking about. But, you know, why don't we get to, I love the pit stops. It's something that's more action-packed and fast, and I love watching it as a fan. I know we're working with Ferrari on pit stop analysis as well. Why don't we roll that clip and come back?
The outcome of this project is to have a better and faster and more accurate overview of single anomaly that we can detect in pit stop analysis.
With the AI, our main goal was to enhance the speed and the productivity of our team, and at the same time reduce the manual workload they had to do, but always keeping the cost low. And that's why we used a serverless architecture and services like SageMaker, asynchronous endpoint that we can turn off and turn on when we need it. Our primary goal was to find a way to synchronize precisely the video with the telemetry data coming from the pit crew equipment, like the screw guns. So we decided to build and to develop a custom model using PyTorch and Amazon SageMaker asynchronous endpoint. The system that we built leverages AI to detect the traffic light in our pit stop video, and that was the crucial part that led us to perfectly synchronize the video with the telemetry data. During a race weekend, they typically manage a lot of pit stop coming from the free practices, the qualifying and racing session. Analyze like 26, 30 videos considering both the front and the rear angles. Previously, this process was entirely manual. So our engineers had to look at the video and the telemetry separately and by hand. Previously, this was a task that required a lot of hours of human attention.
Now, with the AWS services, we are automating this process.
The core components of our solution are AWS Lambda and Amazon SageMaker. That is the Amazon service where we run our custom object identification model. So we built a fully autonomous, robust and serverless architecture. Now, with this new system, the object identification and the desynchronization is completely automated. So our engineer, for example, can now move their cursor on the video or on the telemetry to look at any small inefficiency or to analyze better the pit crew members' movements. So the heavy lifting is fully automated, and this led to an enhancing of accuracy and performance.
This kind of analysis basically guides the training and the process refinement on pit stop performance. What I really like on AWS is the fact that we can have a serverless architecture, so we can build our model in a way that we cannot spend a lot of effort in maintenance. And this is really crucial because we are under a budget cap, so we need every time to focus on value-added activities.
Now our engineers can focus on analysis and even on small details much faster than before. We can focus on business logic and on critical aspects of our development and not on the maintenance of the system.
We are now able to improve the execution of the pit stop in one of the most critical aspects in the race.
Folks, what's most exciting to me hearing all of that is the customer that I work with really talks a lot about predictive maintenance, and we're talking about kind of not so exciting pieces of machinery, but this is like predictive maintenance to the next level, and even like predictive performance, which is kind of, I don't know, maybe I just coined that term. It's really cool. The other thing I'd love to hear, we heard the term serverless several times, and they seem to be very excited about those benefits. Keely, can you tell us about how that's making their lives easier?
Yeah, I mean, primarily they're up against a budget cap. I think they mentioned it in there. And so costs need to be low, and wherever they can find savings is like any of the teams, wherever they can find savings is optimal for them. So having a serverless architecture where they can turn off and on the services when they need them is really like core what makes them so excited about being a partner with AWS and having AWS as the infrastructure there.
Gotcha. Have we seen any like results from this sort of team up yet? This partnership?
Yeah, is this the pit stop performance? Is that what what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, fun fact: the first 5 races of the season, I can't attribute this all to AWS, but I will attribute it to some hard work from Ferrari. Ferrari had the fastest pit stops in the first 5 races of the season, and actually Charles Leclerc holds the fastest for 2025 season so far with 2 seconds flat. So excited to see what happens this weekend, but really, really impressive work from the Ferrari team so far on their pit stops, especially.
Yeah, I think we actually had a question that our producers put in. What is, fun fact, the fastest ever pit stop in F1? And honestly, I think Beta Wolf answered fastest. I think he or she answered within the actual time because they commented almost immediately, 1.8 seconds. So props there. But also I want to give a shout out to Michelle Hayek. Shout out McLaren specifically as well. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I think they're the one that said it first. So that's pretty cool. So all these answers came within about 30 seconds. So props to y'all for being as fast as your favorite sport with that.
Yeah, check it out on YouTube. And the final second of the clip is kudos from another team, kind of giving the the hand wiggle of appreciation. I mean, when you're getting kudos from another team about the speed of your pit stop, you know you've done something right.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And speaking, you guys are in Manila right now. Big race this weekend, right? Over at Imola. We actually have some footage from Imola while we're over at Italy. Smooth transition here. We've been talking about how you can design your own racetrack. I think it's about time we stop burying the lead. Let's play this clip and give the folks what they're here for. Here's how you can design your own racetrack.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm a Formula One and tech commentator, and today we are in Imola at the Formula One AWS real-time racetrack. This is essentially an experience where you get to design your own racetrack, and we get to do it right here on what we call the pit gantry. So behind me here, with just your fingertip, you get to design your dream track. Think of that track that you've always wanted to see on that race calendar. It will then give you a couple of strategies. You get to choose the location where you want it in the world. It will come up with a brilliant name and a poster for it as well. Then it's going to give you an option A, option B, those plan A's, plan B's that we hear about all the time. It gives you a couple of ideas of which tire compounds you should use. But here's the most exciting bit. Then you get to race the actual track that you have just come and designed. So it will give you the name, all the things that you've just learned about your track are here. You get to drive it and race it. And we've got a special guest today that's going to do just that. So stay tuned.
Cool. So I'm thinking high speed with a bit of a roval.
Okay. Do I dare ask what a roval is?
It's a road-based oval.
Okay.
So I'm going to go for some kind of center S's here. And then turn it into an oval. Great, makes this, can I make this a bit more high speed?
I think.
Yeah, a bit more high speed. Yeah, I like this little kind of center S's. Maybe push this out a bit more. Big fan of this. This is great fun. Imagine if designing circuits was this easy. Okay, right, next.
Where do you want
it? Well, I already have a race in Las Vegas, so there's only one place in the world it can be, which is obviously Bora Bora. So it should be good weather.
Okay.
We hope.
Okay, we have our optimal race strategy for your track, for Bora Bora.
For the Bora Bora race, I'm pleasantly surprised that it's a two-stopper. I love that. I think it must be because it's quite warm, We're expecting 28 degrees Celsius, which means the degradation is going to be high. What we've got here, plan A, soft, medium, hard. But we do have quite a high chance of safety cars, which I would expect.
I love that they
Bora
give us
Bora.
the plan for the safety car, which we know that happens in Formula
And it does say switch to intermediate tyres if unexpected rain occurs, but I'm hoping it stays sunny. This is so cool. We've even got the pit stop lap times. It's amazing.
And I love that they also give you options, plan A, plan B, that then when you dig into plan A, you've got all of your things here.
Exactly. And then I think actually, even though I'm an engineer, one of my favorite things is the poster. What a great poster. I mean, it makes even me maybe want to drive it. I'm not necessarily a particularly good driver, but what a poster, eh?
Well, on that note, maybe potentially driving.
I think we've got to try it.
You've got to try it. Come on, let's do it.
Let's go for it.
You want to test this out? See, petrified?
I'm really excited about the engineering behind it. I'm less excited about my driving skills. Okay, here we go. Okay, I hope my race engineer is used to potentially the worst driver they've ever had before.
No one's ever done it in heels before.
Okay, this is so cool.
It's a night race.
Brilliant. Okay, right. I'm not sure I'm doing heel and toe very well.
Yes, look at that.
Oh,
I
mean, this is absolutely. My race engineer is giving me all sorts of advice that I'm doing a very bad job of following.
Straight. Got a nice.
Oh no! Do you know what? That corner is tricky.
Not quite. No. How do you get a 43% with what you just did?
Wow.
I'm kidding. Is this a career plan for you?
I'm very impressed. That was very, very cool. Let's not rewind and analyze how today's race.
Very good. Very good. Do you want to do this again?
Absolutely
not. We weren't rolling, right?
Amazing.
So as much as that was a lot of fun, not going to lie, how is this? I feel like there's some real tangible value to both fans, potentially. You know, we talk about fans, 99.9% of us will never get to experience what it means to drive a racetrack. This is getting very close. But where does the value lie for people like engineers and analysts? Like, where's the value there in that? Because I feel like this is getting very close to the job that you do.
Yeah, exactly. When simulators came into the scene in Formula One, they changed the game.
Yeah.
They allowed us as engineers and as drivers to practice things in, simulation world that were not necessarily feasible in real world. And you can see tools like this, meaning that we're able to practice on tracks we're potentially going to in future that we don't actually have the topological layout yet. You can think about traveling and working out whole different specifications for driver training, for example. I definitely need the driver training, not that I'll be taking up on that. I think it's super, super interesting.
Like even track layouts, now that we talk about it, I can imagine that when we're thinking about where do we want the next track, I can imagine the people designing it also thinking about, well, this is what's possible, this isn't what's possible, we can test it out before we actually get there.
Yeah, exactly. And trying to understand the elements that make a really great racing track without having to actually build the track first. It's very, very cool.
Because it's like that sustainability and efficiency lens that we always talk about in Formula One. Right. Well, look, we had fun doing this, but you at home can also get this experience. So what do we want to tell people? Like they can just go off and design. Is this true? They can just go off and design their own track at home?
Yeah, you can go and actually have a go at making your own racetrack and designing it, working out what the race strategy would be around there, put it anywhere in the world from Bora Bora to London to Imola, wherever you want.
And is F1 open to taking suggestions? Can they just like email their racetrack suggestions now into? That'd be nice.
Yeah, well, you submit them and F1 will get every single one. So you might get to see your, I want my Grand Prix of Bora Bora.
We know, but
I'll follow it up.
Amazing. Well, thank you for tuning in with us today and go and check it out.
And real-time racetrack looks really fun. I played with it just a little bit yesterday, and it was just really exciting to draw kind of what you think is cool, and then see the information around it and see where the fast parts are and the strategies. It's really exciting. Keely and Michael, I'm curious. We saw that there's like this nice application that you log into and you do this, but there's a lot of AWS stuff underneath that makes this work. Can you talk about that? I sense I'm going to hear the word Nova a little bit, but tell us about it.
Spoiler alert. So what's really cool about this is, it's a generative AI app that's built on Amazon Bedrock, and it connects actually to 3 different Amazon Nova models. So Amazon Nova Pro is the thing that's providing the strategic recommendations for the race strategy. So it'll give you strategy A, which is a more modest strategy, and then strategy B, which is the more aggressive strategy. A lot of the drivers were picking the more aggressive. And then Amazon Nova Canvas is the tool, the image generator that is creating the really cool custom retro racing posters that take into account the location that you've selected and then build that racing poster for you using what they think that location would look like and the weather on that space. And then what's really neat is Amazon Nova Sonic. You can actually speak to, it's a speech to speech model that just came out actually, where you can actually talk to an AI race engineer. So you can ask it questions like, why did you recommend a two-stop strategy? Why are these tires the ones that I should use? What if there's rain on race day? And it'll give you recommendations, or it'll answer your questions, all about F1 and the strategy behind the sport.
I think that, it's so cool seeing this sort of tech, and I feel like as a fan, it's just a fun experience. We got a lot of people in the chat already talking about building their own right now. So obviously I'm going to just build it anyway, because I want to see if I can come up with a cool racetrack, one even cooler than Bora Bora. But I understand there's also some sort of sweepstakes going on right now, and I want to make sure we mention that. So maybe we can throw up that link as we're talking about it here. Keely and Mike, what is the real-time racetrack sweepstakes?
Mike, do you want to tell them what they could win? I'll let you be the...
Yeah, so you can enter the sweepstakes to enter into the opportunity to win tickets to a 2026 Grand Prix. Wow. An incredibly awesome opportunity to do that. So follow the link shared below. Create your racetrack, share your retro poster, and enter the sweepstakes to enter a chance to win.
Yeah, and I'll just add, the sweepstakes is available once you've designed your track. So you can click to share, or you can click to join the sweepstakes, or you could do both. And it's open till July 16th. So if you would like to join, you have some time, but you should do it ASAP because clock's ticking.
Gotcha. And we have some clarifying questions here from some of the people already, it looks like, designing it. They're asking, are the designs on the website being looked at in any way? Or are they for fun? Are they public? Like, what happens after you submit your designs?
Well, there's a leaderboard. So there's a leaderboard in person that we're able to see. So we have this activation live in the Paddock Club, actually, in Imola. Okay. So there is a leaderboard of all of the fastest races. I think it would be interesting. We can actually share that probably on social media, which ones are the fastest of the ones that y'all create. But and it's not used for strategy quite yet, but we did show it to the Ferrari team and Ruth herself. You heard her as a strategist. So she's already kind of thinking of ways that you can use it and you can kind of simulate real experiences, particularly with the weather patterns, because that's always a big consideration for these teams.
Yeah, it's just a bit of fun, right? I think it's the idea is that you kind of design your own track and then you become the race strategist for that particular track. So giving you an experience of what it could be like to kind of work on the pit wall. Maybe you've got your own headset at home and you can kind of imagine kind of giving advice on the driver on what kind of plan to take and what tires to use and all the rest of it.
Absolutely. And somebody else asked as well, what all does it take into account when making the track? Does it take in track elevation? Like, what kind of variables are put into this model?
I can answer that. Yeah. So the variables that I definitely know are being used are weather for the tire selection. And then there's also specifically temperature. So that's one thing. And then the lap count. So how many laps they're doing. And so it's kind of high level on the strategic pieces. I don't think it has elevation because that would be like a layer deeper. So potentially next rendition. But yeah, it does particularly take weather into account, the speed that they'll be going, like how fast the tires will wear, with how many turns they have. So it's thinking about all of that stuff, but not elevation, I don't think.
Yeah, that's the second time I've actually had that question. I think probably in next iteration, we could kind of have like a 3D model side of it. So flip it on its side and then kind of put it up and down, because there are some
that'd be cool.
There are some serious hills in some of the tracks around the world.
I can just imagine somebody building one with just launching the cars on their sim. Might need to put a limiter on that elevation for virtual driver safety.
Yeah. Just for safety in general. Yeah, you don't want to be jumping off the cliff.
But yeah, I mean, I cannot wait. Am I allowed to do this? Is Jeff allowed to do this? Are we allowed to get in this sweepstakes, or can we just design tracks?
I think it's always great to read the terms and conditions
There
about
we go.
entering the sweepstakes.
Fair
There
enough.
there might be a no Nick zone in the sweepstakes.
I'm
Right.
running into that issue everywhere. This is getting bad for me. But
Yeah.
everybody in the chat, 100% go there, sign up for an AWS account, play around both with real-time racetrack, and I encourage everybody to try out Nova and some of the other things we've talked about here today. Some of them are just a blast to just mess around with, have some fun, like the image generator we mentioned, Titan image generator. Nova speech to text is really cool, and it's amazing to me how accurate it is. Oh, we already got some people coming up here, so I appreciate that. But yeah, everybody go sign up for the sweepstakes, sign up for some of these services, see if you can have some fun with them. Take our survey, tell me and Jeff how we can be better next time and some other topics you want to see. But bringing it back to Mike and Keely here, I know they are dying to go check out some of the stuff in Imola and Manello this weekend. So guys, thank you so much for taking the last hour or so of your lives to talk with us here, give us some information on this partnership. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next time. Jeff.
Nick, this was better than I expected, and everything I was expecting and more. So again, thanks for having me on. I think we shared a lot of great information. I learned a lot, and this was really fun.
Absolutely. I loved having you on as a co-host. I love getting the chance to check out Miami and meet everybody. Shout out to Dean and Ruth and Tony as well. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show and putting up with us, giving us all this awesome content. We really appreciate it. Hope have you guys back again. And for those
Nick,
watching,
I'd like to thank all of our viewers because
Yes.
we had a ton of great comments, questions. Thanks for all of that engagement. We appreciate it. That gets us excited and keeps us going. So thank you to all of our viewers today.
Absolutely. And final thank you. This is the one that we need to thank you to our editors backstage that were pulling in content until about 3 hours ago to make this thing a reality, to show you guys some of this content. I saw some questions about whether this will be available on YouTube afterwards. We will absolutely have this posted in the next week or so. Give us a little bit of time. We will have everything posted. We'll post some more stuff, I'm sure, from Keely and Mike's team over in Imola. They're doing so many cool things there this weekend. Check out Imola, watch the race, design your own track. I think that's the best way to leave it, Jeff. What do you think?
Sounds great, man. Yeah, thanks again for everything.
Let's roll the credits. We'll see you guys next time.